All right, folks, I'm getting ready to do the helmet tests. At first, I was going to make this as a Patreon exclusive, kind of behind the scenes video, but then I realized it would be good to have this public so that when you watch the final test video, you can go back to this to take a closer look at the helmets. And it shouldn't be much longer from now. I think within a week or two, I should be able to do it. It's been taking longer than I would like because, as I mentioned, Kara and I don't have a house with backyard, yet at least, so I'm very limited in where I can do this. I decided to just grab a bunch of materials for a cutting stand at a hardware store and build it at Blood and Iron so that it's something. I'm not perfectly happy with it because there's some visual clutter in the background, but it's what I have. It'll do. I just want to get it done. And I do have a bunch of helmets that people offered to send in for the tests, which I very much appreciate. So I contacted all of them, thanked them personally. But again, thank you to all of you for sending this in. This is really awesome. And I'll show off the helmets that I've got. So these are the lightest helmets. These are, I forget what thickness. I think these are 18 gauge. I'll just, before the test, I'll have to measure all of them and make sure that I know exactly which is what. This is mild steel, I think. In some cases, the people who sent the stuff in didn't know exactly themselves about the specifications, but I'm pretty sure this is mild steel. And there's also this one here. Again, mild steel. This also appears to be 18 gauge steel, but it's actually a leather helmet with reinforcements. So you can see right here, there's the leather. I'll show you the inside here, although I'm not sure how well you can see that. There's the padded suspension, but this is actually a leather helmet with the metal reinforcement. This should be pretty interesting. I don't expect this to hold up very well. However, this is going to be interesting for the sword test because with a sword like this, of course, you can't really expect to do any significant damage whatsoever to a thick helmet. I mean, unless you do a pommel strike, of course. But this should be pretty interesting. Like, can it do significant damage to a helmet like this? I'm pretty sure it can. And also the full steel, because this is also quite light. This is definitely thinner than historical helmets. I mean, it's a bit hard to generalize because historical helmets had varying thickness. It wasn't, worked out of sheet metal, so there's definitely some variation. But then we've got this one here, which is quite a bit heavier. So this I would, again, I have to measure it, but just going by how it feels, I would say this is probably a 14 gauge. Yeah, I don't think it's 16. I'm pretty sure it's a 14 gauge. So that's pretty thick. It's quite heavy duty. Also has overlapping pieces. So this should be really tough. I don't expect this to get damaged easily, but we shall see. That's exactly the point of those tests. You see the inside here. And the mail here, by the way, is riveted. So that's also interesting to test. And interesting thing is most of these helmets, in fact, most helmets on the market in general are super oversized. I mean, unless you have a ginormous head, these are completely way oversized. I mean, just to give you an idea, this just, it's way too large for me. Even with the arming cap, this is still very large and probably looks a bit weird. Yeah, you can tell how much too large it is. And I don't have a small head, really. So why not? I might as well show you the others on my head as well. They won't be tested on my head, of course, but just to see what they look like. And the leather helmet. These here are very comfortable to wear because they are so light. The other one, well, aside from the fact that it's completely oversized, it's also less comfortable due to all the weight. Then we've got this one here, which also seems quite thick. It isn't quite as heavy as this one here. I mean, it says more parts, of course. Thickness, I think, is pretty similar. This might be, actually, this might be a 16 gauge, but again, I'll just have to measure that. This one here is also very large. Those helmets are all different time periods. The weapons will be too. This is going to be quite anachronistic overall because I just want to test a certain range of weapons, which are all really different time periods. Those helmets, I don't think any of those are a fully authentic reproduction of a particular historical find, but I definitely recognize at least the overall shape, so they're not completely off. Well, aside from the leather helmet, I don't think we have any such finds, but it's going to be interesting anyway because it is quite likely that they had leather helmets, even if the archaeological record is limited due to the material. And then finally we've got this one here. This is probably the largest. Like, this is extremely huge. Let me just see. I think even with the cap, this was still really large. It also doesn't have a liner, so that also makes a difference. So this is extremely, even with the cap, it just wobbles around. Again, doesn't really matter because it's not for my personal use, it's just for testing anyway. But at the same time, the issue is that the zombie heads are even smaller. So, I mean, again, like I said, I don't have a small head, but the zombie heads are quite small, so this is going to wobble a little bit. I'm hoping that with padding, this is going to be okay, but I don't know. Since I'm already wearing this right now, I can make a few observations about visibility in case you're wondering. So the eye slits here don't offer a whole lot of vision, of course. Peripheral vision is mostly disabled. I can see my hands, yeah, up to here actually. So past this point, my hands are invisible to me. So you lose a lot of peripheral vision. I also don't have any vision above here, as you can imagine. So in order to look up, I have to do this. Downwards, I actually have pretty decent visibility because of these holes, and I can also look past, the bottom of the helmet. I can look through there. So, but that's why it's good to have a visor, which knights often flipped up for, not only to see better, but also to be able to breathe better. And then onto the weapons. So I've already shown this one here. That's a Arms and Armor knightly riding sword. I'm going to test this on the helmets. Then, well, actually, I should have started out with this one because that's the earliest in time. So this is way earlier than any of these helmets. That's a Dacian Falx. So that's what would be used against a Roman helmet. I don't have a Roman helmet, but I still would like to try that out. Then I've got this rondel dagger, which I've also shown in a previous video. This is, of course, mainly for stabbing into the eye slits here, but I would also be interested to see what happens when trying to stab into the helmet. Then I've got this Warhammer here, made by Arms and Armor. This is, of course, exactly what you're supposed to use against a helmet or any kind of plate armor. Then we've got this Arms and Armor Hungarian axe. Should be interesting what this does. I think against the thinner helmets, like this one here, this should pretty much obliterate it, I think. This would really dent it severely. I mean, the shape of the helmet definitely helps, especially against sword cuts, because this makes it more likely to glance off. But I think the axe should bite into it pretty easily. Then I've got a lot of stuff here. I've got this mace here made by Windlass. I reviewed that. It's a little bent here from my tests, but shouldn't be an issue. Of course, again, this no contest really. The thinner helmets are going to be completely annihilated by this. The heavier ones, we'll see how they hold up. Then I might try this one here. Not sure yet. I still have to review this and also test, as I say, the Sword of Fëanor, I think it's called, by a Dark Sword. So that may be interesting. And then finally, and most devastatingly, is going to be this one here. So that's a knightly poleaxe by Arms and Armor. This is perfect, of course, for use against armor. You can thrust, you can cut, or, well, cleave pretty much. You can bash them with that end. You have the spikes. This is the armor breaker. I mean, I don't expect any of these helmets really to withstand full force strikes with this without any damage. So the heaviest ones, they might last a little bit, but I mean, come on. And of course, inside of the helmet, we're gonna have this guy here. So we'll see how that, oh yeah, I almost forgot, I might also try this. Just the buckler striking the helmet. This is a really tiny little buckler, but it's still useful. And finally, the person who sent me this helmet here asked me to mention a fighting event in Tokyo in December. It's called Steel Heroes, and there will be a lot of armored fighters from different countries, and there will be a live stream, although he said that might be Japan only. But there's a website. I'm just going to post that down below. So yes, once again, thank you to everyone who donated the helmets for science. It's not going to be perfectly scientific, but I'll try to make it, not only entertaining, but also somewhat informative. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. So thanks for watching.